What's up, guys? Checking in from the jacuzzi. I don't know if it's weird that I'm talking to you guys shirtless from this bubbly water, but I think it's okay if it is weird because, you know, I've been making these videos for like around 5 years now. We should be getting weird by now, right? You and I. But anyway, we're here to talk about a session I played last Wednesday on Hustler Casino Live. It was the usual wacky Wednesday, they call it, which is a 25, 50, 100 game with like the stand-up game and the bounty games and all that. And it was the last Hustler session that I'll have for a little bit because they're doing like a PLO thing this week, and there's also the whole like Vegas WSOP coming up and all that. So I'll be traveling to Vegas and playing some games over there. If you guys like those vlogs, make sure to keep an eye out for future videos. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of weird hands that went down as per usual in Gardena, California. So enjoy, and I'll chat with you guys right after the session. Alright guys, back at it on a Wednesday here at Hustler. The buy-in structure for this game is a 30k cap, but the cap comes off halfway through the stream, which is around the 2.5 hour mark. I thought that was worth noting. Anyway, I start with 30,000, and in this first interesting hand, I make it 200 with Jack 9 offsuit from late position. Probably a little bit too loose, honestly, but anyway, I get called by Kane on the button as well as Kenji in the small blind. So we go three ways to a flop of 8-7-4 with two spades. We've got two overs, a straight draw to the nuts, and of course a backdoor flush draw, which is a bit optimistic with the 9 of spades. But anyway, when they check to me, I decide to continue betting and see what develops. I put in $500. Kane makes a call on the button and Kenji gets out of the way. Already a little concerning that Kane called on the button because he's putting in $500 knowing that Kenji could check raise behind him. I'm already assigning him a stronger hand than if he were to be closing the action. But anyway, we go heads up to a turn, which is the 9 of diamonds, giving me top pair. But it does introduce a few straights and two pair combinations now, assuming that we weren't in trouble on the flop to begin with. So I decide to check it and see what Kane does, and now he puts in a bet of $1,200. With top pair and still having that straight draw in the back pocket, I think folding here would be a little bit too tight, so I make the call and we go to the 5 of hearts on the river. Any 6 now makes a straight, but aside from that, it shouldn't really change too much. I check it again, and now Kane puts in another bet around half pot, $2,100. And it's a tough spot now, I think. We obviously have top pair, which beats bluffs. Let's say he has a hand like King 10 of spades or Ace Deuce of spades, you know, random flush draws that missed. He might have a hand like Ace 4 of diamonds that bets the turn and now bluffs the river for some reason. I don't know, there's a few combinations that he might be trying to steal the pot with. But of course, we also lose to many different hands like two pair that might be going for some value. He could have a set, he could have a straight. So it's a tough decision. We're getting a decent price, but in the end, I decide to let this one go, thinking that we're most likely beat, and luckily, that was the right decision this time as we were up against top set on the flop. And the next one, Jellyfish, apparently was his stream name. He makes it 500. I re-raise with Ace King suited. Gets back around to him. He raises again with also Ace King suited. We end up getting it all in, so 41,000 and change in the middle. He asked me how many times I want to run it, and usually in spots like this, once is always the best way. Mainly because it's almost always going to be a chop, but sometimes, you know, you'll get a flush from one of the players, and a little bit of blood, I think, is good for TV. Not meant to be this time, though, as neither of us flops much, and we end up splitting the pot. Not the craziest hand ever, but I thought it was at least worth mentioning. $40,000 pot, you know. In this next one, no chop though. I straddle for $100 and we get a raise from Tommy on my left to 1,600. Was it 16? 1,500? I don't know, but it was a huge amount given the size of the blinds. I'm not entirely sure why he raised so big, but everyone folds until it gets to me in the big blind, or rather the straddle, the final blind, looking down at Queen 10 suited. Almost always this should be a defend from the straddle, but considering how big of a raise we're facing pre-flop, I wouldn't even hate mucking it from time to time, but This is not one of those times. So I toss in the call and we go to a flop of queen 5-4 with 1 heart. So we've got top pair. That's pretty good. I check, and now Tommy down bets to 1,000, which is less than a third pot. Against such a small size, I like check raising a lot of hands, including top pair from time to time. I'd rather do it with like king queen or even ace queen that just flats pre-flop. Queen 10 a little bit too weak, but this time I do decide to check raise it. We have the backdoor flush draw, and I think it's okay to do it with this hand as long as it's not every single time. I bump it to $3,300, and now Tommy thinks for a bit before making the call. Now we're kind of in no man's land because he would play a better hand this way, like aces, kings, or ace queen, for example, but he would also play hands that were ahead of this way, let's say jacks through pocket eights or whatever, right? So yeah, that's kind of the tricky part about check raising top pair out of position, is you're not entirely sure where you stand on future streets. Turn card is a 7 of spades, bringing in some more straight draws and a flush draw. Also hands like 6-3 and 6-8 get there, which I might have from time to time. I decide to continue betting my hand $6,000 this time. And once again, Tommy makes the call. We see the ace of clubs on the river, and at this point, I'm not sure if we're getting called by worse a third time, so I check it. Tommy instantly checks it back, and it turns out that a queen is good, so we get a little extra value with top pair here. $22,000 pot headed our way. The very next shuffle, there's a bunch of limps, and I look down at queen jack offsuit, last to act. I check it, so we go 5 ways to a flop, which looks amazing. 10-9-8 rainbow obviously has me wishing that I had raised queen jack offsuit pre-flop, but against a bunch of limpers with a hand like this, I don't really see much value in doing that. Obviously this flop proves me wrong though, because we have the nuts going 5 ways in a tiny pot. I'm praying someone puts money in, and Henry wastes no time. When it gets to him, he puts in 400 bucks. I decide to just call. I wouldn't even mind raising right away, but with so many players left to act behind me, I like the idea of just calling. So that's what I do. Dr. P now raises to 1,600. And here we have Kane left to act behind him with pocket kings. He overlimped into this pot, obviously going for a back raise, I would assume. But it doesn't work out this time as we end up flopping the nuts. By the way, worth noting that if I had raised pre-flop, we would have gotten wrecked by Kane laying in the weeds with his kings. But anyway, he gets out of the way. Nice folds from him on this board. Henry, however, does not. He makes the call, and now it's back to me. This is a dream spot. We have a bet, a raise, a call, all sorts of action, and we're standing here with the stone cold nuts. Again, could raise, but now it would look even stronger than if I had raised Henry's original bet on this flop, so I think calling makes the most sense. That's what I do. Time to cross our fingers that we get a nice turn card. I'm not sure if we do. I mean, it looks alright. It's the 6 of diamonds, which means anyone holding a 7 obviously improves to a straight. But at the same time, if one of these guys has like 2 pair or maybe even a set, this card might slow them down a little bit. Not sure how to feel about it, but Henry decides to now lead out on this card. So this hand is completely off the rails. He puts in $2,400. And now I think springing into action with a raise makes some sense. There's a lot of worse hands to get value from, and I just think he has a 7 here almost always. It would be suicidal for him to lead out on this turn card without having a straight. And I just don't think he's going to be able to fold a straight now, so I decide to make it 7,400. Dr. P has also turned a straight, and he ends up making a really tight fold here, only losing to, let's see, Jack 7 and Queen 7. But yeah, I mean, you got to respect this fold, I guess, because he somehow knew something was up. He gets out of there with 7-6 suited. Back around to Henry now, and as you guys can see, this is the cooler card in the deck. This 6 of diamonds gives him a straight flush draw as well as a straight, so he's got all sorts of stuff going on with his hand. Probably not going to fold it. I'm expecting him to call, but he doesn't do that. Instead, he jams all in, 3-betting this flop. Obviously that's not going to work this time, as I've got the best possible hand, so I make the call, and just like that we have 60,000 plus in the middle. We're going to run it just once here, looking to dodge a diamond. And we do. It's the Jack of Hearts. Queen high straight is good, and Henry ends up losing this one in a bit of a cooler, unfortunately for him, but lucky for us because we're now up a good amount of money. In the next hand, Henry opens to 300. I'm on his left looking down at Queen Jack suited. Good enough for a re-raise, so I make it $1,200 to go. Dr. P cold calls my 3-bet in the cutoff, and Henry makes the call as well. So we go 3 ways to a flop. 10-8-5 with 2 spades. Henry checks, and with my exact hand, I don't think a bet would be the end of the world, but this kind of board is generally going to favor these guys more than me. So even though we do have 2 overs in a straight draw, I decide to check it. Maybe if there was a heart out there, I would lean a little more aggressively, but with absolutely nothing going on for me aside from, the straight draw pretty much, I decide to check. Dr. P also checks behind, and we see the 3 of clubs on the turn. Henry checks again, and now I opt for a bet. And my thinking here is I could have easily checked over pairs on the flop. I could have a hand like ace-10 or king-10 suited that also checks the flop. Just many different hands that pot control the flop and now go for some value on a safe turn card. So with queen-jack suited, I think it's a good bluff candidate to balance out those hands. I put in $2,500, and Dr. P makes the call with his turned pair. A brave play, to say the least, because he could be getting called by Henry with a better hand, he could be getting check raised by Henry, and of course I could still have some strong hands myself. Henry makes the call as well, which is a bit concerning to me because if we're getting called by 2 opponents, they probably have at least a little something going on. But we see the deuce of hearts on the river, which is about as clean of a card as it gets. And now I really like bluffing with my hand. We have no spades in our hand, and I could still have over pairs or top pairs that play this way. So even though it's not necessarily the most fun thing, tossing in money with queen high against 2 guys, I think it's important to make plays like these once in a while, just to, remain unpredictable against guys that I play with almost every week. So Henry checks again, and now I opt for a pot-sized bet of $11,000. Really just thinking to myself, if I had a hand like aces, how much would I bet? So I toss in 11K. Now it's on Dr. P with his pair of 3s, and he looks like he wants to look me up. Thinks about it for quite some time, and eventually jams all in for 16,000. Henry's out of there with his pair of 2s, and of course with queen high, nothing I could do but fold. So Dr. P takes this one down with the best hand. An interesting all-in from him on the river, but hey, it's hard to be too judgmental because the man ends up winning this pot and profiting like 18K in the process. So nice hand, Dr. P. Moving on to this one where Audie raises to 300. Jack calls on his left. Jellyfish also calls, and I look down at 6-5 suited in the cutoff late position with a suited connector. I think a call is completely fine, but with all this dead money from Jack and Jellyfish just calling the initial raise, I decide to try to capitalize on that and make it $2,000 to go. If we get heads up with Audie, who is the initial raiser, that's completely fine with some extra money and position. So that's my thinking when I make it 2K. But instead of Audie making the call, he folds. Jack makes the call, so he calls twice pre-flop, and then Jellyfish gets out of the way. Not exactly what I expected, but something I'm completely okay with, because Jack is even less likely to have a strong hand than Audie did. So here we go. Heads up to a flop, which comes down pretty great. It's Queen, Jack, 10, 1 heart. Now, maybe you're thinking, how is that great? You still have 6 high and not much else. Well, yeah, that's true, but because I was the pre-flop aggressor, I have all the ace kings available. I have sets, I have over pairs, top pairs, you guys get the idea. Whereas Jack is most likely going to have some sort of like small pocket pair or something. So as soon as I see this flop, I'm like, all right, this hand's over. Jack checks, I bet 1,400, and then Jack makes the call. So yeah, that's not good. I did not expect that. Now I'm thinking to myself, he probably has hands like ace-10 or maybe, I don't know, king-jack offsuit or something. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really know if he would play those hands this way, but what I do know is the turn is the queen of spades. Jack checks again, and now, even though it seems a little bit scary to bluff, I think continuing to put in money is the best idea. Generally, this card will still be better for me than for him, and it also reduces the combinations of, stuff like queen jack or queen 10 that he might have called with. So I decide to put in another bet. This one a little bit unorthodox, but I think I like it with my exact holding. I put in $4,000, and now Jack, similar to the last hand against Dr. P, blocks the punt as he check raises all in with his open ender king 7 suited. I of course fold 6 high, and Jack takes it down with king high. So kind of a weird one here, but he gets it done, and we lose this pot as well. In the next hand, we are playing the bounty game, which means if you win 3 in a row, you win $18,000 because every player at the table owes you 2K. or maybe it's 16,000. Either way, you guys get the idea. Plenty of money up for grabs if you're able to win 3 hands in a row. I just won a hand from the big blind, and this hand I am in the small blind with Jack Deuce of diamonds. There's a raise from Kenji to 300, a couple of callers, and I decide to get frisky with this one. I 3-bet to $2,300. Obviously, this is a trash hand, but I'm thinking to myself, if I can win this one in the small blind, then in the next hand, I'll be on the button, and all I have to do is win that hand to collect the 16K. So I'm trying to set myself up for a favorable situation in the following shuffle. Let's see if it works out. I make it 2,300. Initial raiser folds, which is always nice. Audie also folds, and now we're just up against Henry on the button. We know Henry is a sticky player, but after just calling pre-flop, he's probably not super strong. So he decides to make the call. I'm still not super worried about it, and we go to a flop of ace, ace, deuce with 1 diamond. So we flop bottom pair, as well as the backdoor flush draw. Not the worst flop ever, and Henry's never going to be super strong on ace, ace, deuce, given the pre-flop action, so I decide to bet again, 1,700. Henry makes the call, which I'm expecting with hands like 5-4 suited, 3-4 suited, you know, all sorts of wheel draws. He could have some medium strength pocket pairs, like, you know, pocket 4s or whatever. So when the turn comes to king of diamonds, I'm definitely liking my chances. We now have that flush draw to go along with our bottom pair. But I'm not really sure if betting here is the best play. I kind of think it is, and looking back, I wish I had bet this card. But instead, I decide to check, thinking to myself that if he floated the flop with a straight draw or like some sort of backdoor flush draw, he might stab now. Instead, Henry checks, and we go to the 9 of hearts on the river. Not sure where we stand at this point. He might have a deuce himself, he could have a king, he might even have an ace once in a while that checks back the turn, although I don't think that's too likely. So I decide to check again, thinking to myself, he's likely got like a wheel draw that just missed, and now we can bluff catch if he does put in some money. And sure enough, he does. He throws in $3,600. I think on paper this is a really easy call. We're getting a great price, and we have a pretty decent bluff catcher. But I don't know, something about the way he bet, or maybe it was just a vibe. I wasn't really feeling it, and I started to convince myself that maybe he did have an ace, or he could even have like a king, you know, like king 10 suited or whatever, that decides to go for value now. I think Henry is more than capable of betting a hand like that on the end here. But we're getting a great price, and we beat bluffs, so I decide to make the call. I knew it could have gotten sticky like this when I re-raised pre-flop with Jack Deuce suited. And sure enough, we end up paying the price as Henry turns over trip aces. Unfortunate run out. Would have been better if we both just completely missed, I guess, but not to be this time, and we are not going to collect that 3-hand bounty, at least not yet. In the next one, similar developments occur, as there's a raise to 300, a couple of calls, and I look down at a more real hand, this time in the small blind, queen 9 suited. Mind you, this is after an hour or two after the previous hand. I've been pretty quiet, mostly card dead. So I'm expecting to get some credit here. I also don't have any of those bounties, so I feel like it's not going to look, you know, like I'm going crazy. I make it 2,300 again. Audie makes the call, Jack makes the call, and Henry makes the call as well. So we get no respect this time around. But we go to a flop of ace, jack, jack with 2 spades. And again, we don't really have much going on here, but I think to myself that this is a very, very difficult spot to be bluffing in, at least from my shoes. And if no one has a jack, we're probably going to be able to take it down on the flop. So I probe here with a bet of $3,000. Worth noting, I would not do this very often. This is probably a bet that I would make like less than half the time, or less than a quarter of the time even. But I toss in around a third of the pot, 3K. Audie makes the call, and right away that shuts me down because he's calling with Jack and Henry left to act behind him. Henry also makes the call, and we see the 6 of hearts on the turn. I'm honestly kind of kicking myself for the flop bet at this point. I mean, what was I thinking? Trying to get through 3 opponents on ace, jack, jack with a flush draw. I check. Audie now bets 8K. Henry folds, and I fold. Audie turns over trips. Yeah, not the craziest hand ever, but I did lose around 5 or 6K in the process, so that wasn't very fun. But let's move to the next hand. Maybe we'll have better luck with king 9, which is significantly better than queen 9. Here we have a limp to $100. I make it $300 with king 9 suited. Tommy on my left 3-bets to $1,200. Audie cold calls this re-raise, and then it gets back to me, and I think, given that Tommy has been pretty active pre-flop and Audie has just cold called, I think that I want to use my king 9 suited as a 4-bet bluff candidate. Hands like these I think are quite nice, and you know, you can apply a lot of pressure on the guy who just called in between. Plus, it's good for the stream to give action. You know, stuff like this is not bad for TV. Wouldn't do it every time. Again, I feel like I've been saying that a lot today, but definitely don't try this every time you have King 9 suited in your local 5-10 games or whatever, but once in a while I think it's completely fine, and this is one of those whiles. So I make it 7K, Tommy gets out of the way, and it gets back around to Audie now in the big blind, who calls again. So this is a really good situation because Audie has already somewhat given away that he doesn't have the strongest hand ever since he didn't re-raise Tommy himself. And we have position, so if we get a good flop, we'll probably be able to win this one, whether we connect or not. An ace-10 with a club definitely fits the bill. Audie checks, and I decide to bet small, $4,000. If he calls, there's a lot of turn cards, which I can continue betting on. And he's only got pocket fives, so this should be enough to get it done. Oh, just kidding. Audie now check raises. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe I gave away some sort of tell. Maybe Audie had just had enough and thought his pocket fives were good. Either way, he makes it 14,000, and that kind of ties my hands with not much aside from a backdoor flush draw on a paired board. I fold, and he turns over the fives, so he kind of wrecked me here. Nice play from Audie, and we also lose this one. So pretty much all the money that we won earlier is slowly dwindling away. Let's see if we can fix it with none other than 8 deuce suited. When in doubt, look for 8 deuce. And this one, Audie raises to $300. And I decide to come after him a little bit, mainly because Audie and I are good friends, and I like to play trash hands against him, you know, sporadically, just to keep him on his toes a little bit. So I make it $1,600 to go. Back around to Audie, and he gives a little bit of a chuckle before calling. So we go to a flop of ace-8-7 with 1 spade. We've got 8 deuce of spades. That means we have a backdoor flush draw as well as middle pair. Things could be worse. I continue for a bet of 2K, and Audie instantly begins to punish me as he has slow played ace-king pre-flop and raises it to 4,000. The old min raise with top. Well, I feel like we're probably in trouble now, but we're definitely going to call at least once because a deuce, a spade, or of course an 8 would be incredibly valuable if Audie does have top pair. And this is kind of the whole thing with playing trash hands, is sometimes you get lucky after your opponents hit something and you can win a big pot. LOL. Turn card is exactly what the doctor ordered. It's the 8 of clubs. So after messing around with trash hands for about 2 hours, we finally get lucky and connect pretty well. We have trips in a pretty disguised situation. I check it, obviously hoping that Audie continues betting, and sure enough he does. He puts in 6K. Well, if he's got me beat, so be it, but we are pretty deep, and I'm going to try to build this pot as much as I can with trips. I now check raise it up to $18,000, and when Audie doesn't snap fold, I think it's obvious he's got a hand like ace-queen or maybe ace-jack. I don't think he has ace-king in the moment, right, because he didn't 4-bet me pre-flop, but ace-queen is probably the most likely candidate that I'm thinking about at this point. So he's not done with it just yet. He makes the call for 18,000, and we now have almost 50K in the middle, going to a river, which isn't necessarily the best one ever. It's the 5 of diamonds. 6-9 gets there now, which of course I don't think he'll have super often given the turn action, but it might stop us from getting value on the river, since maybe now he'll be like, oh, you know, Mariano made a straight possibly. I don't know, but what I do know is it's time to go for it all. This is a little bit risky because we might be getting snapped off by a better 8. He could have pocket 7s. He could have 6-9 himself once in a blue moon, but that's okay. You know, he's also going to have a lot of top pair, and if we can get called by that, then this is a worthwhile value jam. At least that's how I think about it. Audie does not snap call, which is of course what we were hoping for, but he doesn't seem like he wants to fold, and that is exactly the kind of situation we were hoping for on this river. Pot is 100K, and he has to call all his remaining chips, totaling 53K, in hopes of winning that money. The thing is, am I bluffing, or does he have me? And as you guys can tell, this is a really tough spot for him, and I really don't blame him. This is just complete misery with ace-king. After slow playing at pre-flop, I'm not sure if laying this down is the best choice, and it seems like after a bit, Audie agrees because he makes the call. This time I've got it though. I turn over the 8 deuce of spades, a somewhat ridiculous hand to flip over in this situation, but here it is in all its glory. Trip 8s get it done, and we win the biggest pot of the night so far. In this next hand, the bounty game is on once again, and Dr. P has won 2 hands, so if he wins this one, he gets 18k, or why do I keep saying that? 16k from all the other players, right? All this to say, he's definitely incentivized to take this pot down, which is why he opens to $4,000 pre-flop. Now, it might seem a bit ridiculous, but I think this is actually a good play. You should be raising pretty big to, convince everyone else of folding their cards and taking down the bounty in the process. He makes it 4,000. Everyone does fold, but it gets to me in the big blind, and I look down at ace-10 offsuit. Already a tricky spot with such a big raise, but I think we have to defend, if nothing else, the table's honor. We're the last line of defense aside from Tommy, so I toss in the money, 4k into the middle. Tommy's out of there. So it looks like it'll just come down to me versus Dr. P. If I can win this one, then all of us can save 2k apiece. But if I lose, then we all owe the 2k, plus I'll lose the entire pot to Dr. P, so that's not going to be fun. Flop comes down pretty cool, though. It's 8-7-5 with 2 diamonds. And all I'm thinking to myself when I see this board is there's no way Dr. P is going to love this flop after raising so big pre-flop. I think he's going to have a lot of ace highs, probably better ace highs than me, like, ace jack plus. And I could have all sorts of connection with this kind of board after calling from the big blind. So I decide to lead out on this kind of texture. I also have the ace of diamonds, which is quite nice. I throw in 2,500 bucks. Dr. P makes a call though, which is not great. And we see the 6 of hearts on the turn. So now anyone with a 4 or a 9 has a straight. But again, he made it 4,000 pre-flop and he called on the flop. I don't really know what hands he would have that contain a 9 or a 4 for that matter. He could have pocket 9s, I suppose, but aside from that, I just don't see him having many 9s. So I decide to continue betting here, $6,000, thinking to myself, even if he's got an overpair, we could get it done on the river with an all-in. And this is where the hand gets kind of weird because Dr. P thinks for a bit and now raises to 18,000. First thought that goes through my mind now is, what the hell is this? If he has a 9, raising doesn't make any sense, right? Because he would want to let me bluff. Same thing goes for if he had a 4, a raise here makes 0 sense. And if he had overpairs or sets, then a raise also makes no sense, especially in position. So when he puts in 18k, my immediate reflex is, oh man, this guy's bluffing. I think he thinks that I'm bluffing, and now he's going for the rebluff, the hero rebluff. I'm going to fold, and he's going to turn over like ace queen or something. At least that's what was going through my mind, and obviously I'm dead wrong because I'm overthinking everything. The guy just has a 9, and he's raising because it's a straight. It's really not rocket science, but in the moment, I thought to myself that this raise was very suspicious, and I could go for the coveted re-bluff in this situation, and we could get a snap fold from a better ace high, or even a hand like ace 5 suited, or whatever he might be going crazy with. So I jam all in, and then Dr. P snap calls, and I realize I've made a huge blunder. I'm thinking all these levels ahead, and he knows that I know that he knows, and in the end, poker doesn't have to be so complicated as, my brain likes to make it sometimes. And this is a perfect example of why. I should have just folded once he raised to 18k and forgotten about it. But instead, this is what develops. There's 75,000 in the middle. And of course, we're just looking for a 9, which does not come. So yeah, we lose back a good amount of the money that we just won with 8 deuce suited against Audie. And this one was a little bit frustrating, not just because it was mostly self-harm, but also because on top of that, we have to pay Dr. P an extra 2k. So yeah, a dream spot for him. He gets the double up, he gets the bounty, and he's been on a good run lately. So gotta tip the hat to Dr. P, having a good year himself. Nice hand, Dr. P. Enjoy the chips, but many more battles to come, I'm sure. Anyway, that was the last fun hand of the night. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for some final thoughts. Yeah, so as you guys saw, it was not my best showing by any means, but it was still a pretty fun day, and I think I'm overall okay with the way I played despite the last hand. It wasn't really my favorite, and it's not too often that a hand bothers me like to a point where it weighs on me for days after, but for some reason that ace-10 offsuit hand kind of got under my skin, and yeah, it's still you know, taking that mental tax, but that's just part of poker, I guess, dealing with stuff like that. And really punting to Dr. P is not the worst thing ever, so things will be fine. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the hands. As always, as far as results, I ended up winning somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000, which is still a great amount of money to be profited from just a card game for around 5 or 6 hours. So I'm happy with that, of course, and for now, at least, the heater remains intact. Now, I said this last video, but that can change at any moment. That's just the nature of high-stakes poker, but for now, I'm enjoying it, and hopefully you guys are as well. So that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support. I'll see you all from Vegas, most likely, next video. Until then, good luck at your local tables. Peace.